before the session. So I've pushed everything live. We're live on YouTube, but we're not live on the platform yet. The platform only goes live in 4 minutes.
Who won the script off yesterday? I want to know.
I'm afraid it's a tie between you and Molly.
Dang it.
Yeah.
That means Molly won.
No, it means I won.
No, it was fantastic. It was amazing.
That was
and
so fun.
I had so many people messaging me afterwards saying, oh my goodness, because I made a post on Facebook too, and they just said that was mind-blowing. So thank you. That was really phenomenal.
My pleasure. We'll see you tomorrow.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thanks for lending Craig to me too. It's so random with the background. It's hovering head and then a random hand.
Right.
That's very cool. For some people, these backgrounds aren't working well, and the background sticks to their face. So then this person is blue. It's like an avatar. So I said to them, just leave it. Just it's so strange. No matter what they do, if they lift up their hands, it's just blue everywhere. So
that's
I said
funny.
to them, yeah, it's really strange. Cool. So just before we go live, I'll mute myself and put my camera off and start the recording. I am here though, if you do need something. So I'm not going to be gone. I'm just going to be in the.
How would I be able to tell you if I needed something?
You can just say, hey, Natasha, are you there? And you can also write in the chat box, but I'll be here. And then if you want to see the live stream, it's going to be over there. I'll put you a link in the chat box. So that's where you're going to be.
Oh, I see.
So there's a live chat box. See, somebody's already there. See you. Estelle says hello.
Oh, yeah, I don't have that one up. If I did,
yeah,
I'll look at the chat.
Worries.
I'll look at the chat for Zoom if you need me to. So if you take a question or you want to put something over there, do it in the Zoom chat.
Yeah, I will. I'll paste them there. You can ignore them if you want. So that's all right as well. Or you can leave them till the end. That's up to you. Cool. I'm going to record and put my video. I'm right here if you need me. We really appreciate you.
So I'm going at right on the top of the hour then, right?
Yeah. So 40 seconds.
Okay.
I can count you down if you want.
No, I'm good.
Awesome. Thanks so much. See you just now.
Good afternoon, South Africa. Thanks so much for having me. This is Craig Zuber. I am a MAPS coach with Keller Williams Realty, and I'm super excited to be speaking with you today. Hope you guys are equally as excited. And today we'll be talking about three things. Probably the most important thing that you would like to discuss would be the results, but we're going to back that up and we're going to talk about relationships, then experiences in order to get to the result. All right, especially as high Ds, our drivers, we focus so severely on the result that sometimes we may miss the experience and or developing the relationship at the level that we actually should be in order to develop long-term relationships. So let's just dive right into relationships and the importance of it. The relationships, that word starts with R, and we usually believe that we're in the real estate business and we're actually in the relationship business. So the question that I have for you is, if you had to rate yourself on a scale of 0 to 10 on how well your relationships are, where would you rate yourself? And how did you come up with that? And what would you need to do to take it from whatever number that you wrote down in order to make it a 10, right? So if we're moving fast and we're looking to accomplish more and we're looking to get more results, usually what happens for us is we're going fast, we're doing, and we're missing our key relationships because we're not willing to slow down, right? Slowing down is probably one of the keys to developing relationships at a higher level, right? So relationships with our database, how well is that, right? Like in real estate, our business is our database. You guys have all probably heard that multiple times. And if that is true, do you know each person that's in your database and when they plan on making a move? And if not, you got to ask yourself, why not? Instead of focusing on more, go back and go evaluate the people in your world. When do they plan on making the move? A move of any sort. What would that move do for them? What do you know about that key relationship? Do you know about their family? Do you know about their occupation? Do you know about their recreation? Do you know about their dreams? I'm sure you guys have all heard the Ford philosophy. And when it comes to those types of relationships, it's also being able to tap into to each person in your database and who they know as well, right? Like your referral-based business. So the next phase is the experience, and I'll just go through a couple of these and then I'll go back and we'll go deeper. People care more about experiences than they do about anything else, right? Like it's how did you make people feel? And how do you know, right? How do you know how you're leaving them? Because people don't know, they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So what experience are you providing for the people in your world? And how would they rate, if I was to ask them, how would they rate you on the level of experience that you're providing to them? And we can take that lightly, but I mean that wholeheartedly, is how are you making how are you making each person feel? What is the value proposition that you are delivering to them to make sure that they've had the best experience with you, that you're going to be unforgettable, and they wouldn't consider working with anybody else. So this all goes, the value proposition for what we do with buyers, what we do with sellers, what we do with team members is key to how we develop our relationships and the experiences that we provide to them. Again, we can get to a result without providing a great experience, but then everything else in our life will be harder. And why would it be harder? Because having to go after new business all of the time is definitely harder than retaining the business that we have and those key relationships, right? It's easier to do business with our personal relationships in our database than it is to constantly go out and have to get new business. You guys agree? I know you can't answer me back, but just think about that for a minute. So when it comes to relationships, another question that I would have for you is, how well are you listening to them? Are you asking enough questions about what matters most to them? Do you know what's important to them? Do you know what their expectation is from you? Do you know how they want to be communicated with? Or is it your agenda? You have to ask yourself that. Is it about you or is it about them? Right? Because the consumer should be the most important person in our life. Right? And if you look at some of the very best real estate agents, they provide a level of experience that goes above and beyond even their own purpose and their own value proposition. They are truly committed to put their client and or the person in their world above anything else. Is that what you're currently doing? Right? There's this book out there, it's called Acres of Diamonds. In the press, the actual overall story behind it is that everything that you could possibly need or want is right underneath your feet, right? You don't have to always go out and be super creative. Make sure that you're tapping into the people closest to you that know you the best, that can help you tap into your genius zone and attract more people like yourself. Does that make sense? Experience, when we're looking at experience, we're looking at providing the highest level of value. That's really what matters most, is value. And so ask yourself that question. What level of value are you providing currently to your sellers, currently to your buyers, and currently to your team members or people in your world? Are you delivering on what you say you're going to do? And are you sure? A lot of us make up stories when it comes to the people in our world, right? Like, oh, they don't want to be reached out to. Oh, they don't want to hear from me. Oh my gosh, I would be bothering them. Those are stories, right? Like, oh, it would sound like I'm too pushy. Oh, you name it. I'm sure that every single one of you listening to this right now has some type of a story that we are making up to prevent us from taking action. And in order to move forward, in order for any of us to move forward, you're going to have to divorce the story so that you can marry the truth, right? So any story that you're ever telling yourself, follow it back up with this. How do you know? Well, my clients don't want to hear from me more than once a month, or my database doesn't want to hear from me more than once a month. How do you know? My clients would prefer to get text messages from me instead of meet me face to face and or hear from me on the phone. How do you know? The how do you know is kind of, it's providing you the truth that you're making up a story. Does that make sense? Like, I want you to know the truth, because when you have the truth with anything, right? Truth and trust go hand in hand. If you want people to trust you, you got to be able to tell them the truth. Make sense? So trust, truth is probably the two key ingredients of developing high relationships, as well as listening, right? Listening to their needs, listening to their wants, listening again to what matters most to them. Taking yourself out of the equation, not being attached to the outcome so that you can always do the right thing. Are you telling them the truth about the current market conditions? Are you telling them the truth about what actually needs to happen? What needs to happen? Are you setting proper expectations with people? Right? That all goes hand in hand. The greatest relationships that you have, you probably have expectations. Right? So the better you get at setting expectations, the better experience that we can deliver. That's called eliminating assumptions so that we're not guessing. All right. So if you guys have any questions at all in regards to developing relationships at a deeper level or creating an experience that would help you get better results, please reach out or put them in the chat box, and I'd be happy to address them. Anything with relationships, experience, value, what you're currently doing that may or may not be working, what you're going through currently with today's marketplace. One of the ways to evaluate the relationships or the actions that we're currently taking forth is that if you spend each week, like you guys are doing all of your activities each week, when you get to the end of each week, are you reflecting on what you actually got accomplished, what your learnings were, so that you can adjust and get better, right? That's another thing. In order for us to create a better experience for people, we have to work on ourselves harder than we're working on anybody else, right? So are we working on our skill as much as we are on developing relationships? Are we working to get better every single day? And then how do you know? What specifically are you working on? Are you wishing that it was easier? Or are you wishing that you were better? Because right now there's blessings and curses to each thing that we're going through. And a lot of us are experiencing, operating out of our house versus being at the office in these times. And this is one of the times where you could absolutely, without a doubt, spend an hour each day working on your skill, working on your conversations, working on your value proposition, working on what sets you apart, working on the fact of like, how are you not a commodity? What makes you different? What makes you unique? What makes you like, why would I do business with you? You have to be able to answer that. Would you even do business with yourself? Are you delivering to people the way that you expect to be delivered to? And so when you work on your skill level, it will help you develop relationships, because the more you work on your skill, the better you get. The better you get, the more confidence that you have. The more confidence you have, the more willing that you are to reach out to people, right? Like if any of you here has ever had call reluctance, like, I don't know if I really want to reach out to somebody, that's call reluctance. But you have to ask yourself, do you have call reluctance, or is it a value deficiency? Because there's not too many people that I know that deliver massive value that then have call reluctance or meeting with people reluctance. Make sense? In a lot of cases, we make this so challenging. We make it so challenging in the sense that, we talk to each other about what's not working instead of what is working and what we should be improving or what we should improve upon. So you probably heard either reasons or results, and you can't have both out of bold. And the only way that you could have both is if you focus on reasons to get results, right? So I'm going to look at a question here. What would be your best advice to the agent TL starting brand new? Do they embark in their career in creating, or how do they embark in their career in creating those relationships? All right, that's a great question. So I would start with the people that I do know. That's what I would do. And I would dig into the people that I know, just asking them what matters most to them, so that you get a clear understanding that when you learn from the people that you already know and you have that confidence, you slow down and you pick their brain. And then when you have that, think about this. If I was a TL starting off today, I could reach out to 5 people that I already knew that were agents, and I could start picking their brain and figuring out what matters most. All right. And I could also, after they told me everything that matters most, I could then ask them, who else, just give me one person, what other agent can you think of that if we were delivering what mattered most to them, would absolutely, without a doubt, want to be a part of what we're doing? Right? It's pretty much that simple. Is I reach out to an agent, Ask them what matters most. Keep the focus on them. Ask them what's going on with their business. What's working? What's not working? What do you need help with? How could I help you with that? And then who else could just give me one other agent that you could think of that I could reach out to provide that same level of value? It's not that we need 4,000 people to call. We just need to slow down with the people that we are calling. Right? Again, it's developing relationships so that you can create that experience and then you get the result. If you're like, man, I just need to make 20 contacts a day, I'm going to call through as fast as I possibly can, you're probably missing the key, the depth of the relationship. Any other questions in regards to that, Natasha? Got it. All right. Does anybody else have any other questions that they would like to ask? It's easier for me to work off of a question so I can be engaging back with you than to just speak for me to keep speaking. So anything that you have, it would be super helpful. I'm sure if you have a question that other people have that same question, so please feel free to ask it right now. That would be great. I could talk about activities all day long, right? Like I can give you an example of this, and that would be if you are having 20 meaningful keyword here, if you're having 20 meaningful real estate related and or care driven conversations per business day, I don't know too many people that are doing that aren't hitting their goal. Right? Like Gary would say this. I've been in the room with Gary's Top 100 when he addresses how creative people are, how awesome it is to utilize your creativity and all these other things that you are working on during the day, just specifically so that you're not working on what matters most. Right? Like it's an avoidance technique, thinking that something else is more important than developing key relationships. Let's see. So what's your favorite question to ask a contact? How can we better develop relationships with competing agents that see us as a threat to their business? How can we develop better relationships with competing agents that see us as a threat to their business? What makes them a threat, or what makes us a threat? How do we develop relationships? Well, relationships are developed at a deeper level by asking questions and by listening listening to what they're saying, going deeper on what else they mean by that. So here's what I would tell you with anything, whether it's in your database, whether it's somebody that's competing with you, whether it's somebody that you want to recruit, we have to get better at not just asking questions, but asking what they mean by the words that they're using so that we can get clarity, right? Clarity is power, and clarity eliminates assumptions. So if somebody's threatened by what we're currently doing, what are they actually threatened by? And how did they come up with that? Right? Again, most people are telling themselves a story, so we just want to get to the truth. And the only way that we can get to the truth is by meeting them where they're at, having empathy, getting a better understanding of their business, and seeing if there's a way that we could help them. And sometimes if you reach out to help somebody and they're not willing, then maybe you'll just reach out to them at another time when they are, right? Like especially during some of these fascinating challenges and these times that we've gone through over the last almost year now, can't believe it's been a year. We never know what other people are going through, right? Like what else is getting in the way? What other challenges that they're facing potentially in other relationships or at home? And we're just so focused on how do we grow, that if we would slow down and ask them about their, like them as a person, them as a human being, not just their business, but also themselves, it could probably drop the barrier, right? Like, again, how do you earn their trust? You slow down, you show them that you care, you listen. And it's pretty rare that the boundaries don't get broken when we do that. Let's see what else we got here. What if your sphere of influence isn't necessarily in your geo farm? Well, if your sphere of influence isn't in your farm right now, because we're developing relationships, do you have somebody in your sphere that knows somebody in your geo farm? Right, they don't necessarily have to be there. We can always develop the relationships, letting them know that would you like to get a referral from that person? Do they know that you can actually help them with real estate services anywhere in the world? So if I have a relationship somewhere that's 4 states over, are they absolutely without a doubt clear that based on who I am and what I do and the value that I provide, that I would go above and beyond to find that person that could service them in that area, right? Do they know that? Does everybody in your database, regardless if they live in your geo farm or not in your farm, know that you can help them with any real estate needs that you have? And the reason why that works is because this is about relationships, right? So if they trust me, they are in my database. They know that I care about them. They know that I'm going to put them with somebody that has an extension of values of mine, right? Like that's the key ingredient here is I want to make sure that just think about this, whether it's your parents, whether it's your brothers, whether it's your sisters, aunts, uncles, we want to make sure that would you put another agent, if this was a referral, would you put them with any of your family members to help them? And if you can operate from that ethos, right, like everything else will fall into place. Let's see. Agents expect instant results. How long does it take to build a relationship with clients? And how many touches does it take? So that's a great question. Instant results. Well, they do expect instant results. We expect instant results because that's the world that we live in, right? Like everything is faster, want things now. We never slowed down though to ask like at what cost. So I think all of this has to do with instant results. How long does it take? Well, 90% of our business comes from follow-up. We have to realize that, right? And 80% of our follow-up business comes from connecting with people between 4 to 8 times or 4 to 12 times. So think about that. If you're frustrated that you didn't get an instant result the very first time that you connected with somebody, well, statistically, only 10% of the time you're going to, because 90% of the time you're going to have to follow up for some specific reason. So making sure that you are booking that appointment to follow up with people and then following through with doing what you said you're going to do. The touches itself are to put you as in front of them so they always see that what you're doing, okay? But a touch, I personally think that if you don't ask them how they'd like to be touched and what information matters most to them, then we think it's working and they don't, right? So how long does it take? It could take only one conversation if we would slow down to get clarity on what it is that they need from us or what they're looking for. Let's see. How can we deliver better competing agents? Got that one. Our problem is loyalty. We've been building key relationships for years. However, they decide upon someone else. How can I enhance the relationship to ensure loyalty? So let me read that one more time. Our problem is loyalty. We have been building key relationships for years. However, they decide upon someone, they decide upon someone else. How can I ensure the relationship to ensure loyalty? That is a great question as well. I would say that in that regard, without knowing all the context, it's about feedback, right? Feedback is the breakfast of champions. Constantly getting feedback on how are we doing, what we could be doing better, what we could improve upon. When we get feedback with people from people, they know that we're listening to them. They know that we actually care. And so even feedback, if somebody's already left, right? Like if they decided to go somewhere else or they chose a different organization, are we getting feedback on why? What made them choose that other agent or that other office or that other competing brokerage? Are we asking those questions? Because most of us are afraid, like, again, if we're going back to building relationships, it has to do with getting the truth. And so sometimes we make up stories. Again, we make up that story. Oh, they did this because of this, this, and this. But the only way we're actually going to know what we could have improved upon is if we ask them. And sometimes it may take a little time before they'll tell us, right? Like, you guys ever been to here's an example. You ever been to a restaurant before where the food wasn't so great, but the waiter came out and asked how everything was? He asked you the question, how was it? And you said, oh, it's fine. And you kept going. And then you just decided never to come back. Well, it wasn't fine. The waiter did ask for feedback and we didn't tell them. So sometimes it's the person and they could, the waiter, waitress, how they could slow down and say, what specifically did you like so much? What could we have improved upon? That may give you better insight versus being general. How was it? Oh, it's great. It's okay. And then they just move on. Right. In those particular cases, it's like, don't ask unless you really want to dig. Hopefully that answered that question. Because we can't control, here's the thing. We can't control what other people do. Right? We can only control what we do. And so if somebody decides to go somewhere else, use somewhere else, whatever, then the question actually, besides asking them for feedback, it's also asking yourself for feedback. What did you do? What else could you have done? What did you learn from this? Right. I was talking to Natasha earlier, and we don't learn from actually doing. And that's the biggest misconception, right? We learn from reflecting on what we did. And that requires us to slow down. It requires us to ask questions of ourselves. Because if there isn't learnings, then we'll repeat the mistake. And let's see where we're at now. So please elaborate some more on the importance of the experience we create for our clients. How do we go from E to P? How do we go from E to P? Well, I mean, E is entrepreneurial, P means purposeful. So I think it kind of goes hand in hand in regards to the experience of, like, I just don't like assuming, right? Assumptions are death to business. And I just ask. That's if you could take anything away from this, it would be whatever you want to know from somebody, have the confidence to ask them and be okay. So the first step is actually asking. The second step, though, is being okay with their response and not attached to the outcome. That's how you could create an excellent experience with people. Is if you get offended because they tell you that they expected this, or they would like to see this, or you're not providing this, then there's already a disconnect. If you're not offended by it, like, tell me more. What else could I have done? I'm looking to improve. I want to be the best at what I do. I want to be able to deliver the very best service. I want to have the very, very best value proposition, right? Like, if you want to take it off of yourself, you can always ask. When clients sometimes won't tell you directly, or an individual might tell you directly about yourself, but if you really want to know what matters most to them, then flip it off of yourself and ask them about the industry, right? Ask them what they think about the industry and the challenges of real estate itself. So put it under an industry, and whatever they tell you about the industry itself is what they're, in most cases, it's what they expect to be done for them. Like, what are the most frustrating things that you see about the real estate industry? Ask that to a client and see what they tell you. Because everything that they're sharing with you will formulate what they expect to be better if you're delivering it to them. Anyway, that's that would be one tip that I would say going from E to P. Purposeful usually means slowing down and getting clear. Purposeful means I have intent. I'm not just intending to do it. I'm actually going to do it, right? Like, how do I be more purposeful with my relationships? Well, if I haven't been so great with my relationships, I could literally get on the phone with every single person in my database right now and let them know that I could own it first. It's like to develop better relationships, you have to own our responsibility, take responsibility for our own actions. So I could literally say, you know what, 2021 is the year that I made the commitment that I'm going to dig deep and have better relationships. And I'm going to reach out to each person. I'm going to let them know I've made mistakes in the past. I've gone too fast. I haven't slowed down. And this is the year that I'm going to care. And what can I do for you? So that's a great action to take. My challenge to you, though, is if you decide to take that action, you better follow through with it. Could you share the Ford script with us to help us understand how to have a conversation with clients in a more meaningful way? Absolutely. Ford isn't necessarily a script. Ford is an acronym to create commonality and create a deeper level of connection, right? So if I'm asking you what matters most, I'm using that in a sense of, tell me about your family. Tell me about how old your kids are, like things like that. So family is creating commonality. People do business with people that they like and people that they trust. So I'm looking for common ground with people and the significance behind it. You don't have to use every single one of them, but it's attempting to find the commonality. I ask you about your family. You tell me, oh my gosh, my kids are getting bigger. This is what's happening. Well, in that particular case, I personally have, a 15-year-old daughter, a son that just turned 18. That may have some commonality for us to connect at a deeper level. How's your work doing? How's your job? Right? Like, what's happening in your world? Have you had any great experiences with what you're currently doing? What's your greatest challenges? Just to get an understanding of like what they do, how they think, what matters most to them. What are you doing for fun? That's recreation. During this whole, since March, what have you done for fun? Got it? Makes sense? All right. In dreams, these dreams, like, you got big goals. What are you looking to accomplish over the next 5 years? Anything that you're working towards, going on any big trips? I'm personally looking for commonality. Commonality helps not just with the relationship, it's the connectivity, right? And when we're looking at, we talk a lot in real estate about conversion, your conversion ratios, but conversion has to do everything with connecting. When you connect with people and you listen to people and you know what's driving them, why would they, what's the significance of them building a real estate business? What matters most to them about that? Who else is it impacting? Oh, it's impacting my wife or it's impacting my kids. Okay, great. Your wife and your kids. What does your wife do? How old are your kids? That's connecting. That's building rapport. That's building a relationship quickly, right? Like that shows that you care. If you can get off of a call of somebody that you haven't met or that you just recently met, and you now know about their kids, you know about some of the fun things that they do, you know what they do for a living, now you're cooking with gas. Now you're going in the right direction, right? If you could come back to me and say, hey, each person I have in my database, I know when they plan on making a move and the significance behind it, and I also know what they do for fun, how many kids have dogs, that is a very, very valuable database. Let's see here. What is the one thing that I must do right now repeatedly in my lead generation to move my business forward? What would you do? What is the one thing that I must do right now repeatedly in my lead gen? Let's have fun with that. First of all, what's the definition of lead generation? That's what we have to, we talk about it in generality, but the truth is, what are you doing now? Like if it was me, again, I'm getting on, like if I'm breaking into real estate or I'm on a mission, I'm committed. I'm going to work half days. Okay. That's what I'm going to do. 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. That's a half day. And I'm going to do that for as long as it takes. And I'm going to reach out to each person in my world and figure out if it's not them, who else, right? Because statistically, and I know a few things have changed, but statistically, if people aren't going, statistically are making a move between 7 and 10 years, and I know that I have 1,000 people in my database, then statistically, at least 100 of those people are going to make a move. All right. So now I know statistically how many people will make a move, but here's the key. The referral and or the other connection is equally as valuable. So when I'm on the phone with somebody, if I'm lead generating, I'm not getting off that phone without knowing when they plan on making a move, whether it's 10 years from now, 7 years from now, 5 years from now. I'm not getting off without knowing something common from them that you don't already know, whether it's family, occupation, recreation, and dreams. And I'm not going to get off the phone unless either they give me somebody that may plan on making a move or somebody that they know that might consider making a move. If you slow down to do that, I promise you, that's what I was talking about with 20 meaningful conversations per day. Meaningful, not as fast as I can, not grip it and rip it. 20 meaningful conversations a day. It will take you wherever you want to go. You just, when we go back to the whole instantly gratifying piece, you got to ask yourself, how long are you going to be in this business? You plan on being in this business only for the next 3 months, or is this your career? Because when you know it's your career, then it doesn't need to be instantly gratifying. If somebody's not making a move for 7 or 8 or 10 months, well, you're going to need business 10 months from now. Let's see what else we got here. Just to build upon that real quick, like Gary Keller would say this, like the number one thing in key to success in this business is time blocking. And that time block is actually following your schedule, right? Utilizing the fact of I am going to spend the mornings to generate business and the afternoons to service business. And I'm not going to let anything get in the way of that. Because and that is a challenge, okay? We hear things like building a bunker. We hear things like eliminating distractions. The truth is, though, then we don't do it. So if you get bothered by incoming calls, and that's a distraction for you while you're looking to generate business, being purposeful about that means that you're forwarding your phone. It's turning off all your dings and dongs and everything else that's distracting you so that you can be purposeful in the conversations that you have. The last things that I will leave you with is number one, thank you for having me. Number two, that we're human beings and we usually make this more complicated than what it really is, right? Like we're always looking for the new instead of focusing deep on the old, which is the key relationships, which is delivering a great experience, which is until we have enough leads, qualified leads, like real leads, until we have enough leads to hit our goal, there really is no other question. And I promise you, if you stick with the fundamentals, right? If you work harder on yourself than you do anybody else, you will get there, right? If you work on your skill for an hour every single day, I promise you, everything else will fall into place. Because there's three key things when it comes to real estate. Outside of the relationships, experience, and the results, there's three key elements where everything lies. One of them is in your schedule. Like every conversation comes back to this: your schedule, your database, or your skill set. That is the root of everything that we do. Work on your skill, eliminate assumptions completely by asking and getting the truth, right? And the results that you're looking for will be there. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate the opportunity. Excited about visiting South Africa in person when we have the opportunity. You guys go out and focus on those key relationships and creating those experiences and asking for feedback.